A reading from John's Gospel, chapter 12, reading from verse 44. John chapter 12, from verse 44. Judgment by Jesus' words. Jesus said in a loud voice, "Whoever believes in me, believes not only in me, but also in him who sent me. I have come into the world as light, so that everyone who believes in me should not remain in darkness. If people hear my message and do not obey it, I will not judge them. I came not to judge the world, but to save it. Those who reject me and do not accept my message have one who will judge them. The words I have spoken will be their judge on the last day. This is true because I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me has commanded me what I must say and speak. And so I know that his command brings eternal life. What shall I say then? Is what the Father has told me to say." That gospel reading is quite significant because of where it comes in John's narrative. Let's suppose that we take John's gospel and we adapt it for the stage. So we put John's gospel up on the stage as a theatre production. After that reading, the curtain would come down. And when the curtain goes back up again, the scenery has changed completely. We're in the upper room. It's just Jesus and the 12 disciples. And John, for the rest of his gospel, continues that. There's a very long account of the discourse in the upper room with John and the 12, starting in chapter 13 with Jesus washing his disciples' feet. And then John takes us into his version of the Easter story. John's account of the arrest, the trial, the crucifixion, the resurrection, and the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. In other words, this reading we've had today is the end of Jesus' public ministry. John underlines that. He almost highlights. If he had a highlighter pen, he would have done it. It's this bit about where Jesus stood up in a loud voice. You don't do that in the upper room. John is emphasizing this is the end of the public ministry of Jesus in his account. And it's a summary in many ways. It's kind of a synopsis, a bringing together of the whole of Jesus' public ministry as recorded by John up to that point. So let's just quickly summarize. What did Jesus do in John's gospel up to this point? Well, there's the turning of the water into wine. We have the story of Jesus with the Samaritan woman by the well. We have the feeding of the 5,000. We have Jesus healing a lame man by the pool because he can't get into the water fast enough. We have Jesus healing a blind man by putting mud on his eyes. And then we have Jesus raising Lazarus back from the dead. And it's not just these wonderful miracles and things, but there's also the teaching that goes with it. I am the bread of life. I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. I am the resurrection and the life, and so on. And John almost to me seems to be, when you get to this particular passage we've just got here, it's as though he's saying, reader, if you haven't got it yet, if by this point, with all that I've given you about what Jesus did and what he said, if you still don't get it, this is the message. When you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father. It's there in today's gospel reading. When you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father. They're one and the same. What about that next act that I mentioned? What about the upper room? That discourse, Jesus with his disciples. It's Philip. It's Philip that says, show us the Father. That's all we need. And you can almost imagine Jesus going, oh, good heavens. Philip, don't you get it? You've been with me all this time. You don't get it yet. Now, I know that some of you are connected to St. Philip's Church at Scholes, and this isn't a criticism of Philip. In many ways, it was brave. Because how many of us have been in a situation where there's a teacher or a lecturer and they're trying to get a point across and they deliver it and then they say, anybody got any questions? And people haven't understood. But no one wants to admit, no one wants to say, I didn't get that. No one wants to come across as being the one, perhaps being a bit thick. And in many ways, when someone says, excuse me, I didn't understand that. Can you explain it again, please? There's almost a sense of relief. And I think in the upper room, when Philip asks that question, show us the Father, I don't think the other disciples thought, oh, Philip. They probably thought, oh, God, you asked that question. So glad you asked. Because I didn't want to look like it was me that was being a bit slow. So Philip's brave. Because I think the rest of the disciples didn't get it either. So what is the message for us now? Here in the beginning of the third decade of the 21st century. What does it tell us, this passage? Well, in actual fact, there's a lot of Philips out there. There's people, you know, who they understand by looking around them that it didn't just happen by chance. They understand there's got to be something else. They believe in God. There's something more. But they want to be guided. You believe in God, yeah, but what do I do about it? Okay, so I get that there's God exists. What do I do? And that's where we come in. It's us that need to show those people that when they see the Son, they've seen the Father. And there's two ways we can do that. We can do like Jesus did in today's Gospel reading. He stood up in a loud voice and proclaimed. We could do that. We can go out on the streets, not now, of course, but we can go out on the streets and proclaim Jesus in a loud voice. And some of us might feel comfortable doing that. I suspect, however, that quite a few of you watching me today wouldn't feel comfortable about just going out onto the streets and proclaiming Jesus in a loud voice. There's another approach. Jesus in the upper room, just with his disciples, or as I mentioned earlier, the Samaritan woman by the well, one-to-one. And there's ways in which we can demonstrate that Jesus is the Son. We can demonstrate our faith, for example, in the current crisis, by delivering food parcels to people who are trapped at home and can't get out. There's the Y down thing that's been happening. That's another way we can demonstrate Jesus, or just making donations to NHS charities. There's lots of ways. But the core message that we're giving out to the people in the world around us, all those Philips, all those people who are saying, show us the Father, and our response is we show them the Son. And when we show them the Son, say, this is the Son. When you've seen the Son, you've seen the Father. When you've heard the Son, you've heard the Father. Seeing the Son is seeing the Father. Amen.